How do they recover from workplace hurt? That's the topic that we're going to address today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager. And today I have an amazing expert with me. Her name is Meryl Herr. She is the owner of the Good Works Group. She previously served at Fuller Seminary's Max Dupree Center for Leadership, where she created resources to help marketplace leaders integrate their faith with work. Welcome, Meryl. I am delighted to dive into this topic with you today on Flourish-Meant.
Thank you, Tina. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Meryl, when someone is hurt in the workplace emotionally, and it's affecting how they feel in their mental health or even in their physical health, what are some things that you can do to recover from that workplace hurt? Whether you can stay in that job or whether you have to transition, you still need to heal. What are the first steps toward that?
A great question. In the book, I talk about one of the first steps you have to do is you have to acknowledge it. Often we just sweep our work hurt under the rug and just stuff it. If I can be very colloquial and common in saying that, we just stuff it and move on to the next thing. But the problem is that hurt builds up over time. When we don't dissipate that stress, we just carry it with us. So I would say the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that your work has hurt you in some way. And that can be telling somebody about it. It could be writing about it in your journal, and can it be telling God? And I think in telling God about our work hurt, we want to use a prayer format that we see in scripture that's called lament. And lament is a type of prayer where we can bring our pain to God and also declare the promise of God's faithfulness so that we walk away in hope. Ultimately, we won't be stuck in our pain. God is present with us in our work hurt. God is not abandoning us in our work hurt, and God can heal us. So that's where I would start. Acknowledge it. And if you are a person of faith, take it to God in prayer, because God delights to hear from us, and God wants to walk with us in these dark moments and to bring us healing and hope.
If someone does need to leave their job, what are some ways that you can consider reinventing yourself or considering what might be a better fit for you in your next steps?
One of the first places I would start would be thinking about your skill sets and your experience. Often we think about our skill sets in terms of tasks that we've done at a certain job, and we want to do those same tasks at another job. But underlying the tasks are some skill sets that we have that are actually more transferable to a wide variety of roles. I think you have to get to know yourself. A lot of people don't like to start there because they think it's too self-centered. You have to really pay attention to, who am I? Again, who has God created me to be? What's that through thread, that sense of calling I discern? But then also, what are some of the marketable skills that I have? And so looking at that, again, in community, in prayer, and hopefully God will expand your imagination for the ways that you can serve Him in this world, whether that's as a banker or a baker.
As you move from one position to another or from one company to another, you can easily carry all that hurt with you, and it can destroy your next position, your next employment space, even if you're working for yourself in that next space. How can you apply forgiveness in order to move forward with mental health, with spiritual health, and with the best career steps that you can take in your next journey?
I've recently been reading T.K. Kendall's book on forgiveness. One of the ideas in that book is that we practice forgiveness because it's what Jesus calls us to. We're called to forgive, but forgiveness isn't always easy. And forgiveness doesn't always mean letting the person off the other hook, right? So sometimes if you're leaving a toxic work environment, you may need to give an exit interview before you leave and go into that new workplace so that the organization is more aware of what's happening. Maybe if it's a dynamic with one particular manager or a department or the entire organizational culture, to get that on record so that there's hope for change, because I wouldn't want anybody else to experience that going forward. And so I would want to be an agent of change. And then as you're going into that new workplace and working through forgiveness, especially if you've been in something that has been very toxic, that has done considerable damage to your mental health. I strongly recommend working with a licensed mental health professional on processing some of that hurt. I think there can be some trauma that comes out of the workplace. And so we don't want to carry that into a new job. We want to be on the road toward healing. And in fact, many of the people that I interviewed during the course of my book had access to mental health professionals and met with them regularly to help overcome their workplace hurt. And again, not everyone has that access, but if you do and can avail yourself to it, I think it's going to help you go into your new job healthier. And we can't always assume that what we experience in one workplace is going to be true of the next one. So to go in giving the next workplace the benefit of the doubt that maybe they are trying to do things well, that maybe my manager is for me, until I have evidence to the contrary, but going in, not projecting what we've experienced in our last workplace on the people, the systems and structures in our new workplace.
And just like in our financial health, we want to diversify our relationships so that all of our relationships are not thrown into the one basket of workplace friends. And that can happen pretty easily, especially if you work for a church. You can develop all of your relationships around that. And if there's a hurt in that, you don't have anyone to go to. Can you talk about developing different sets of friendships so that you can process, you can be healthy if you do need to make a transition?
I can't stress enough the importance of having friends that are a neutral third party. They don't know your employer. They don't really know a lot about your everyday work. You may give them some idea, but they're not in there with you. So they can be a great sounding board when you are walking through work hurt, and you can talk to them, get their wise perspective. And then that can help you make informed decisions about what you need to do. You mentioned those that work in churches and clergy. And many years ago, I did quite a lot of work around clergy well-being. One of the things we learn about the difficulties of being clergy is that clergy often experience a profound amount of loneliness in their work. It can be very difficult for them to make friends in their congregations because of the power dynamic there, the shepherding dynamic that's going on. And there are some vulnerability pieces that are just not appropriate to have deep relationships with many people in the congregation sometimes. And so pastors and clergy can be particularly lonely. Yet there are some who do develop really strong community within a church, maybe with the other church staff, maybe with a few families or a few key friends in the church. And when they leave the church, if they don't have community beyond that, then that becomes a real problem, because that just makes their isolation terrible. And when you're coming out of work hurt, you need people. And so when you're devoid of those really fruitful relationships, you're missing one of the key ingredients to healing. For people that are in those situations where most of their friends are their work friends, I would say make sure that you also have friends in your other spheres of influence. So using myself as an example, it's been really important for me to develop friendships with neighbors. So I have a friendship with my neighbor across the street and another neighbor down the block. And especially as my kids are starting to play more sports, I have developed friendships with a lot of the other moms in our soccer teams. Those have been really life-giving. Even if church community might be hard for someone, look around and figure out, where can I find other nurturing relationships? Maybe it's in a book club, a civic organization. Look around and start to build relationships. I will say this. I've heard from so many people, and I have experienced this too, post-COVID, it is very hard for us to build relationships. We've lost some really crucial skills in walking across the room and asking someone to have a cup of coffee, or even checking in with somebody to see if they're okay. We're not going to go into all the reasons why that is, but we got to really re-engage those relational skills and re-engage our courage. to walk across the room. For example, I made a major risk the other day. There was another soccer mom that I don't know super well. We just talked a couple of times. And she made a passing comment in a conversation that she was just taking things one day at a time right now. And that little phrase just stuck with me. And again, I don't know her super well, but I decided to text her and just say, hey, I know that taking it one day at a time is just a product of being a really busy working mom. But in case it's something more, I want to offer my friendship a listening ear. And that could have come across really odd, really prying to her. But I think if there's a potential that she was hurting, I wanted to make sure that she had a friend that she could talk to. And I think we need more of that in our culture because work hurt is not going away, especially right now. It's in the news everywhere. There is so much work hurt happening right now. And I don't think it's going to stop, unfortunately, anytime soon. And so people need friends, and we can take a step towards that and being there for people that are hurting, especially if we've experienced work hurt, if we've been on the front lines. God promises us that he can use us to comfort others out of the comfort that we've gotten from him.
Is there one final message that you would like to leave with the audience today regarding rebounding from workplace hurt?
I'd like to say 3 things. 1, you're not alone. Other people have experienced workplace hurt. 2, I'm going to leave you with a challenge. You've got to deal with the pain. It's uncomfortable, but you've got to deal with it. And 3rd, you got to remember that God sees you in the midst of that. And God is with you and for you and will bring you healing and hope.
Meryl, how can people stay connected with you and avail themselves of your amazing resources, including your brand new book?
So you can reach me at my website, merylherr.com. That's MERYLHERR.com. There you can sign up for my Substack newsletter. And I also have a way that you can share your work hurt story with me. So if you're somebody that's experienced any type of workplace hurt and you'd like to share your story so that it can maybe help somebody else, then you can email that story to me at whenworkhurts@gmail.com. And don't worry, I will change your name and all the identifying information about you and your employer so that I share your story anonymously. But you never know how something that's happened in your life can bring hope to somebody else.
I hope that all of you who are listening who may have experienced work hurt for yourselves in your lives have been equipped and inspired and encouraged to heal. And of course, I also hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant.